Hey folks, it's Abby from Abby of Pelennor, and today I'm going to be doing my balancing of the books for January. So that name probably sounds familiar to you. So Emma from Drinking by My Shelf has been doing the balancing of the books for a couple of years now, and I've loved the idea for so long, and I asked her probably at the beginning of 2021 if I could steal the idea for my own channel. She said yes, and it's taken me this long to actually get around to doing it. So yes. Not my idea, it's definitely Emma's. I will of course link her most recent video from balancing the books down in the description box below, so please do go and check her out. Obviously you've probably watched her already anyway. But to give you the basic concept of this, I started out the year of 2022 with 124 unread books on my TBR. My aim is to lower my TBR, and each month what I do is I have to make sure that my TBR either stays the same and is 124 books or goes down. So if I bring in books I need to read them or unhaul them or whatever. I am already going to give myself 2 cheats, and that is in October and December. The reason for that is that October is my birthday month and December is the month of Christmas, which I celebrate, and so I get a lot of books in those 2 months. And it makes it very, very hard to balance the books because I have to read that number. At Christmas, it's on the 25th, and I got, I think, 25 books. I didn't have time to read that many books. So I'm letting myself off for Christmas in December, and I'm letting myself off for my birthday in October. For those months, if I don't balance, I don't get a punishment, but I still obviously have to start from that higher number the next month. The rest of the months, if I don't manage to decrease or balance out my TBR, I have to look at unhauling books, or using Emma's alternative method, which is setting certain books that I have to read and that don't count for the balancing for the next month, and if I don't read them, they have to be unhauled. Those are the ground rules being laid out, so let's get into what I read in January. Straight away in January I was on the back foot because one of my wonderful, amazing friends, Caitlin from Mad Cheshire Rabbit, was doing her Christmas presents late this year. So I got some Christmas books in January. So I went from 124 to 128 in one big go. So Caitlin got me Passing by Nella Larsen. Where am I going to put it? Pop you here. My shelves are a mess. She got me Odin's Child by Patterson, The Sudden Appearance of Hope by Claire North, and Natives by Akala. So already my TBR is at +4. Oh no. So I'm at 128 books in January. The first book that I read this month was Amari and the Night Brothers by Alston. This is a middle grade fantasy that is like a magical version of Men in Black, but obviously middle grade rather than adult. We follow Amari. Her brother has been missing, presumed dead, and she refuses to admit this. She refuses to admit that he's dead, and she ends up being recruited into the same Men in Black style organisation that he was in to try and figure out the truth. This is amazing. This is fantastic. It's a 4.5-star read. It's like this far off 5 stars. I'm so excited for the sequel, which is coming out later on this year, I think in April. This is fantastic. 100% recommend picking this up. I was taking part in the Goodreads Choice Readathon last month, and I ended up choosing to spread it over the entire month rather than just the 2 weeks that Sam from Griff Reads set it for. And this could actually count for all the books and all of the prompts, but the one that I used it for was the poll pick, so I got you guys to pick my book. Then next up I read Exit Strategy by Martha Wells. This is the 4th novella in the Murderbot Diaries. As always, I adored this. 4.5 star read. The first book in this, we follow a sentient AI that has gained control over its governance module, and all it wants to do is sit and watch soap operas, and it ends up having to save the humans again and again and again. This series is fantastic. All 3 books were in my top books of 2021 last year. No surprises that I love this. Then for the Goodreads Choice Readathon, this was picked for my 5-star prediction. I gave it 4.5 stars, so not quite 5-star, but pretty close. Next up is one that I read that wasn't for the Goodreads Choice Readathon, and that is How to Be an Antiracist by Ibram x Kendi. This is a non-fiction. It does what it says on the tin. This was such an interesting read. I haven't run this through Corpal yet for the ratings. It's going to be at least a 4-star. A lot of things to think about in this one, a lot of points of view that I hadn't considered, so very interesting, very educational. I recommend that everybody picks this one up. Then for the prompt of reading a book outside of my comfort zone, I picked up The President is Missing by James Patterson and Bill Clinton, because I don't read a lot of mystery, thriller, action books anymore. And I actually really enjoyed this. I listened to it mostly by audiobook while I was at work, so about 13 hours of audiobooking, which was really fun actually. I need to do more audiobooks while I'm working. And yeah, I had, for some reason, despite the fact that I've read his middle grade books, so Maximum Ride and some of the Witch and Wizard series, for some reason I thought that James Patterson was going to be really right-wing, and he's not, and so he makes the president in this left-wing, because that's what he is, which I should know from the Maximum Ride series, and yet here we are. So yeah, this was a real big surprise read for me. I'm pretty sure I gave it 4 stars. I actually really enjoyed it, and I want to pick up the second one that recently came out, The President's Daughter is Missing, or something like that. So yeah, a surprising win. And this one brings me back to equal. Then for the prompt to judge a book by its cover, I picked up The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I do want to address that there are some issues with this where I think Becca in the Books said it best, so I think I might just leave her video down below. There's issues with this in how TJ Klune has utilised the trauma of Indigenous peoples of North America and them being in the residential schools. He seems to think that he can't tell their story unless it's in fantasy, and he can't tell their story at all. It's not his story to tell. And the way that this ends, if it is taken from that viewpoint of a residential school, is almost erasing their history. It's awful. I don't condone it. I do think from how he's been speaking in interviews and things that it was a genuine mistake, but nonetheless genuine mistakes don't negate the harm that they cause, so I do just want to address that. Separate from that, this was a 5-star read for me. This made me cry, it made me weep. My partner kept asking if I was okay, thinking it wasn't the book, thinking that something had went wrong in my life. Because I kept crying over this. It's fantastically, beautifully written. I was so absorbed into each and every one of the characters. This is one of my 5-star reads of the year. And this one brings me under. So currently, so far, I have balanced the books. More than balanced. Then next up, along with the buddy read in the Discord server, for everyone else with the Illumicrate box, I read A Marvellous Light by Freya Marske. This is the first book in a fantasy trilogy where we are set in Edwardian, Victorian, that era, Britain, primarily in London, and we follow 2 men, one who is magical and one who is not. The one who isn't is forced into this magical world by accident, by an administrative error, and ends up being marked with a curse that causes him great pain, and so the other guy is trying to help him. This is a gay romance between those two. I enjoyed this more than I thought I would once I learnt what it was. So this is basically a romance with historical fantasy elements. I don't read romance, so that was kind of like a plunge in the deep end for me. I did enjoy it, I did find it enjoyable, but I was not expecting the graphic sex scenes. I'm fine with graphic sex scenes, I just hadn't been expecting them. This is written by a woman, so please be aware of that going in. And then I also much preferred everything that was about the development of the magic, because I'm a fantasy reader. However, I will say, 1, that Illumicrate did a beautiful job with the book, and 2, I actually did enjoy it still. I'm pretty sure I gave it like a low 4 stars, so I do want to continue with the series and see where it goes, because I'm really hoping to learn more about the magic. The magic is created using cat's cradles, and so I really want to learn more about that. Next up, I read Bedlam by Landy. This is book 12, I think, in the Skullduggery Pleasant series. This has no impact on my balancing of the books because this is a reread for me, so it's not on my TBR. But I enjoyed it anyway. I gave it 4 or 5 stars. The ending is intense in this one, and I'm really looking forward to discussing this on the 6th of February with everyone in the Dead Famous Read Along group. Please check out Hannah's channel for the info on that down below. Then next up, I read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. This is a classic book written from China in approximately 500 BC, and it is a very interesting little book. I will say that this edition that Carrie from Caring for Books got me has some beautiful illustrations in it, and it's something that I'm going to have to look into again in more depth when I'm not just reading it through. I'd like to really analyse the points that are made in this and really absorb what they're trying to tell me. This does what it says on the tin. It is a non-fiction. It is Sun Tzu's thoughts on how best to win wars, and lots of people in the modern day have been utilising this within the business world to improve their way up and things like that. Then my last book for the Goodreads Choice Readathon, and that is Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. This is fantastic. This was for the book with representation, which a fair few of the books could have counted for. I think most of them, but I think all of them apart from the presidential one. But this one is written by an Indigenous author. I believe she's from the Ojibwe tribe. This was fantastic. This is amazing. So I, for some reason, had assumed that this was a fantasy, and I don't know why, because it's not. It's contemporary. Technically not contemporary. It's set in 2004. But I refuse to say that that's anything other than contemporary. So yes, it's set in 2004 and we follow a young girl who is trying to help her community who's dealing with a very big drug problem in her native community. It is very hard-hitting. Please, my trigger warnings, I always put them in the description box. Please check the trigger warnings for this one. I promise you that if you require trigger warnings, there will be something in here. It is an intense and heavy book, so please do check them, but if you can manage it, it is well worth the read. It is heartbreaking and so amazing, so well written, the writing is beautiful. I really do recommend picking this one up. Then just a small little book, and that is Tea with Jane Austen by Pen Vogler. This is actually a recipe book giving recipes that link in with Jane Austen and her stories, but they also kind of give you some more contextual information with how it links in, and they show you original recipes from the time period, from the 17 and 1800s. So I wanted to actually read through this as a book before I then put it onto kind of the cookbook shelf. So this was really good. Actually, I'm really looking forward to making some of these recipes, and I adore that they do indeed include those original recipes in there. So yeah, I really do recommend this for any Austen fans. And then the last full book that I finished in January is actually Passing, one of the books that Caitlin got me at the beginning of the month. This is by Nella Larsen. It is a classic, and it is about two women, both who are black but are light-skinned. One is very light-skinned and passes for white within the community, is married to a white man who's actually incredibly racist, even for the time. This is such an interesting book. The ending, which obviously I won't spoil you, but it is intense and not what I was expecting. There were so many discussion points in here, so much that I still need to let sink into my brain. Even though I finished this a couple days ago, I really recommend picking this short little book up. It's fantastic, and I can't wait to watch the adaptation to see what someone else's viewpoint brings to this story for me. It is amazing, and thank you so much, Caitlin, for buying me this. Thank you, Olivia, for telling me that I would enjoy it. This is a fantastic classic, and it is going to be one of my new favourite classics. So as I said, those are all the books that I've finished, but I have been reading part of books still in January. So first up, I have been beta reading Pablo Suarez's, how do you pluralise your name, mate? His book. So he is in the stage of writing a book, and I am very, very excited. I'm loving reading this. So yeah, I'm part of the way through that at the moment. Then of course I've been reading The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas with Olivia Savannah from Olivia's Catastrophe. I've not read today's chapter, I'm filming this on the 31st. We will be 231 pages into this book by the end of the month. I am loving this so far. I am so invested. I actually want to read more than one chapter each day. I am trying to avoid doing that because it's gonna end up feeling quite a lot of work if we do, but I'm loving it so much. I'm so invested. I love his writing. This is such a good book. And then the very last thing that I'm reading is I'm reading some of The Fall of Giants by Ken Follett. This book has been on my TBR since 2019, and when I realised that I had finished the books on my TBR and beyond, and I didn't want to start a new book for the last 2 days of the month, I thought that I would try and get some more of the way through this. I'm filming this midday in my lunch break from work on the 31st, so I still do have time this evening to read some more of this. Yesterday I read around 80 pages. We'll see how many pages I read tonight. I'm not forcing my way through this, I'm just kind of reading however much I enjoy, but yeah, so we'll see how much I read of this by the end of the month. But so that's just a little bit that I'm reading through, and I'll pick this up if I somehow get through the massive TBR that I set for February. And that is my January reading wrap up. So I successfully balanced the books. I ended up getting it from 124 to 118 despite getting 4 new books. I'm pretty happy with that. And because it's in the middle of the workday, I don't have any alcohol, but I do have this tea, so hopefully Emma will accept this as a substitute. Let me know down in the comments what the best book that you read in January was, and please do, like I said, check out Emma's video down below, as she is the originator of this, and I adore watching these videos every single month, and I'm really hoping this will keep me accountable to getting through my TBR. Thank you again, Emma, for giving me the permission to steal your idea. Thank you so much for watching, folks. If you'd like to see some more from me, please do hit the subscribe button down below and hit like if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!